Hello, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime. My name is Chloe Tonis, and I got a new microphone that I think sounds pretty great. So I guess this means I'm officially a real podcaster now. Anyways, we're not exactly here to talk about microphones. We're here to talk about cybercrimes, and this week we're going to be discussing an attack on AO3, also known as Archive of Our Own, a website popular for hosting fanfiction. The site was offline for a little over a day, leaving many fans of fictional works in a frenzy, worried that it and their favorite fanfictions may be gone for good. So, what happened? On July 10th, 2023, people noticed that they were unable to get to AO3, and it was soon announced by the site around 8:30 in the morning that they were experiencing some issues and were currently investigating exactly what was going on. 5 hours later, it was revealed that the reason the site was down was due to a DDoS, or Distributed Denial of Service attack. A DDoS attack works by having multiple computers or other types of systems from around the world flood a website with so many requests that it simply can't keep up. Ultimately, this ends up dropping connections from real users and making anyone unable to use the site. Oftentimes, a botnet is used to perform these attacks, and a botnet is a network of computers infected by malware known as zombies. Specifically, they're made to perform tasks that a centralized command and control server tells it to. In this case, that was sending requests to AO3. Tuesday afternoon, which was the very next day, the site was back up and running as normal, with the promise to work on optimizing their Cloudflare setup to prevent this type of attack in the future. Cloudflare, among other network performance and security services, does notably provide DDoS mitigation. A group called Anonymous Sudan took credit for the attack and demanded a ransom to get the DDoS to stop. But this is actually one of the more interesting parts of the story rather than the attack itself. Despite being called Anonymous Sudan, it's actually pretty unlikely that Anonymous Sudan is in any way related to the country of Sudan at all. CyberCX blog has a pretty good article explaining why this is unlikely, and to summarize, Anonymous Sudan primarily posted in English or Russian, and has only started posting in Arabic more recently. And according to some speakers of Arabic, which I am not, it's also not very good Arabic, which I'll get into a little later. They also apparently deleted some old posts to cover their tracks and appear more legitimate as a Sudanese group, rather than a Russian-aligned group. However, Anonymous Sudan also aligned with other pro-Russia threat actors that are believed to be affiliated with the Russian state, more specifically Killnet. Okay, so the types of DDoS attacks Anonymous Sudan was performing are known as SYN floods. All you need to know about SYN floods is to start a TCP connection, the client computer sends a SYN packet, and the server sends back a SYN ACK response. In a normal connection, the client will send back another ACK packet, but in the case of a SYN flood, that packet is never sent, so the connection is left open longer than it should be. This in itself isn't anything out of the ordinary, it is a pretty common way to perform a DDoS attack. However, it would be pretty expensive to perform this type of attack, and it is unlikely that a small Sudanese hacktivist group has that kind of infrastructure. However, Killnet itself is known for performing DDoS attacks. Cybernews.com also suggests that on top of SYN flood DDoS attacks, they've also used HTTP-based DDoS attack methods as well, which are even more complicated and even more expensive to perform. But, of course, both require massive infrastructure that is unlikely for a small Sudanese group to have. It is much more likely that this is related in some way to a bigger organization, and the evidence suggests that that's likely one of Russian origin. Remember earlier when I mentioned the Arabic was deemed by some speakers to be inaccurate? On Telegram, Anonymous Sudan posted a message justifying why they launched a DDoS attack on AO3. The message can be found in my sources paste, but basically it said it's part of a campaign targeting companies registered in the US, and that they are also against all forms of degeneracy, including LGBTQ+ content and smut. Some people more familiar than Arabic with I am suggested that the original Arabic message is missing a lot of terms that were in the supposed translation, and it looks almost like they made the English message first and tried to reverse engineer it into Arabic. Some people also pointed out that it would be a bit odd for a religious extremist group to use the term LGBTQ+, and instead use less kind terms instead. Some Arabic speakers also said that this was more of a generic Arabic that was being written in rather than the Sudanese dialect. Although I am unable to refute or confirm these claims, it does seem pretty agreed upon by Arabic speakers, and it also aligns with what we know, that originally this group was only speaking English and Russian and only started speaking Arabic later. It's likely poor because they don't speak Arabic to begin with and are using some kind of translation app. So do we know who is actually behind Anonymous Sudan for certain? No, not entirely, but it is likely a Russian-based group masquerading as a Sudanese group rather than an actual Sudanese group. We also know that they've been attacking other sites as well, including Microsoft and Reddit, but the attack on AO3, at least on my corner of the internet, got the loudest response. I don't know what that says about my online presence. Cybersecurity experts believe we will see an uptick of activity from this group soon, especially if they really are affiliated with these bigger Russian threat actors. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, and thanks to Mashable, Polygon, The Verge, CyberCX, and Cybernews for reporting on this incident, and especially to CyberCX for explaining why this group is probably not a Sudanese group, despite the misleading name. And until next time, stay secure.